I would say the most important thing you can do to prepare yourself for the coming age in which the masters, for the first time in 98,000 years, are going to be working with humanity as consultants, as guides, is start meditation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Author Spotlight brought to you by Apex Media Global. I'm your host, Monica, and today I am so excited. This is going to be such a treat. We're sitting down with Ira Palmer today with his book that's inspired by just ancient wisdom. There's so much to get into. There's evolution and cosmic forces and esoteric knowledge, which, to be honest, is kind of my favorite thing to do. So hopefully you'll get a thing or two from this conversation, and I can't wait to pick his brain and his wisdom today. So Ira, thank you so much for making time to join us.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be with you finally.
Yes, finally. Um, okay, like I said, there's so much to get into. You were also talking about the crossroads that humanity is at, which we'll get into in a minute. Also the ageless wisdom teachings. But I just want to take a step back and kind of pump the brakes on my excitement a little bit and talk about just your motivation behind writing your primer. And who do you think is your target audience?
Well, I'm hoping that the audience will be broad
Mm,
and it's inclusive. That is always our goal, to be as expansive and inclusive as possible. I think people are ready for good conversations, honest conversations, because of the kind of atmosphere that we're dealing with right now. Divine discontent are the words I would use to characterize what citizens are experiencing right now. And it's creating a lot of fear and concern about, are we headed in the right direction? Is that right direction clear to most people? And I think for many, it is not. And that concerns me greatly because what I've learned over the years is that humanity is one. As Helena Petrovna Blavatsky said, everyone has a soul. And the soul is a little different from the personality. We learn from high school that the soul comes from a different place than the personality. Charles Darwin, we learn, tells us about animal man. And animal man came out of the separate species in the animal kingdom. And we see the remnants of Lemuria, which was the starting point of our journey back in history, 18.5 million years. So we look very different then. The planet looked very different at that time. We were dealing with Australia, New Zealand, Easter Island, Hawaii, the Philippines, and some smaller islands that constituted what we know as Lemuria. That continent was destroyed by volcanic activity, but during those early stages, we learned a lot. We were attempting to coordinate the physical vehicle. The concern was on the physical body, coordinating it in such a way that it could be useful. we did not have the language that we have today. It just did not happen until later during uh, uh, Atlanta's times. So language comes with intellect. And at that time, we, as animal man, imitated the sounds we heard in the jungles of Lemuria. And as we began to focus on improving our communication skills and creating some margin of safety, you have to go back to Jurassic Park. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but it was like that. There were huge dinosaurs that created fear for entire communities, especially, Benjamin Crumb says, the flying creatures who could decimate entire communities in a matter of hours. And so that was a big concern, and they had meetings on this. How do we save ourselves from these monsters? And they came up with the little brain power that they had to create little safe havens where they could raise their kids and eke out some existence. And it was always a challenge. So that was what we were dealing with, food, shelter, um, finding some margin of safety to carry out the lives that we were living, but it was always a struggle. And there was something that happened during the last 4,000 years of the 6 million years that we were in Lemuria. And that is an intervention by the solar god, the solar logos, he is called. He's head of the solar system. And he brought a group of people here from outer space. They came here on UFOs that can be as big as 3 to 5 miles in size. And he brought some people here to show us, to model for us how we should work together. And these were called the Triterians. And surprisingly enough, we still have a little bit of information about these people. They were small in stature, about 5'3". They were bronze colored. And because there wasn't as much pollution in the world at that early stages, they were darker than most of the people that we see now. They looked like the people of the native people of Atlantis. So they were kind of dark, bronze colored, and they were so in love with activity. They loved helping one another. You didn't have to ask. They would go out and fish. They were just as good on land. And so when they were depicted, it was always as part fish and part man, because they were just as comfortable in the water as they were on land. And their art was excellent, tremendous, just very moving that these people could create such wonderful, beautiful works of art. But something happened. Something happened in the later stages of that journey. And I almost hate to talk about it because it was so jarring to what they were doing and their ability to work as a team to solve the difficult issues that they were facing. They saw the importance of what they called God, the irresistible force. But something happened during that period in which the people, the fair-skinned people from what is now Greece and Rome, came into Lemuria, mixed with the people, and introduced differences. This one is better than that one, and that one is better than this one. So they introduced division where there had been none of that. And it created chaos eventually. And of course, we know that the continent of Lemuria was destroyed by volcanic activity. So that continent is now at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, the deep, dark waters of the Pacific Ocean. So there was a great deal of concern about what was happening to the people. They were changing under the influence of Greece and Rome. What is now Greece and Rome, it was not called that at the time. So that happened, and it's a period we should be ashamed of. We should have learned our lesson, and that lesson being humanity is one, that we should work together as a unit because everyone has a soul, and the soul comes from a previous solar system. So they are wise beyond measure. They know us. The soul knows the personality better than our parents, our mothers. So we go back a long, long, long time, and we should have learned that the importance of working together and the role of the soul, which is the teacher. The soul remembers all of your previous incarnations. We've been here many lifetimes, hundreds of thousands of lifetimes. So we have to understand the law of rebirth, the law of reincarnation, the law of retribution, cause and effect. These are laws that we need to understand and become familiar with it. But we have not done that. We have assumed that we live one lifetime and we die, and that's it. It's not the truth at all. We've come here hundreds of thousands of lifetimes. So we don't really die. Hospice has told us that before you transition, you oftentimes see a person from your family you know to be deceased, and you can't believe that you're seeing them. You rub your eyes and you say, oh my gosh, that's my Aunt Sally. And she doesn't have the equipment to speak. She doesn't have a vocal cord, but you can see that broad smile that she was so famous for, and you feel some comfort because you can see her, and she relieves some of the fear and trepidation that comes with what we call death. It is just a transition. The soul cuts the cord to the heart and to the brain. When the cord is cut to the brain, it's lights out. It's like we're ready to transition to another dimension, and it's called etheric matter. My mother, when she was about to transition, And I talked to her father, my grandfather, and I told him, I said, "Grandfather, you know we don't die, don't you?" He said, "What?" And then, sure enough, within a little while, he saw his 9 brothers in the room and pointed them out to my mother. She could not see them at the time, but he called them out by name. And then he got so happy, he started to sing. And she said, "I didn't know he had such a beautiful baritone voice." So this happens to all of us. And we think that we're worse off than we thought we were because we're able to see someone that is deceased. So this happens to us. It's very normal. Hospice lets us know to expect that, and that once you have that vision of someone who is deceased, it probably won't be long that you transition from the dense physical world into the etheric, invisible world. And so it's really a homecoming. Some of these people, relatives that you thought were dead in the grave, they're right there in the room and you can see them. And it gives you comfort and eases your fears about this process that we call death. It is such a misnomer to call it death because we are immortal and we come here until many lifetimes until we become what we should be, which is God's. That is our birthright. That is our destiny. We're in control of that journey. We can take as long as we want. But as we learn the specific role of the soul, we realize that that tiny voice of the soul is the voice that we need to hear. How do you get in contact with the soul? Through the age-old royal road, which is meditation. And that's something that Americans are not good at. The Asians are good at it. The Hindus are good at it. The people in the Himalayas are very good at it. The Tibetans. And so we have to learn to be quiet and employ silence through meditation to get in contact and eventual union with the soul. We have a way of doing that called transmission meditation, which is the age-old royal road. But Americans are not particularly good at it because we're so distracted with the toys in our life, the material things, that we have a hard time when we sit still and try to experience silence or transmission meditation. We fall asleep and and we're not meditating. We could be saving lives through this particular form of meditation. The Space Brothers are custodians of all the energy streaming into our planet. And also the masters, they're not controlling us in that way. They're masters of self, masters of life. And so they are custodians of all the energies that stream into our planet. Most of those energies are too high frequency for humanity to absorb. It's called prana. And when we can absorb those energies, a mom who's fleeing violence from Boko Haram, Taliban, ISIS, she barely has time to pick up her kids and run for cover, trying to find an oasis of shelter. And she finds that she's out there looking for a place. They've set something up, but it takes them a while to get there. And during that period, the masters of the spiritual hierarchy, the kingdom above the human, called the kingdom of souls, they are channeling that energy through our ajna center between the eyebrows. And that energy is automatically stepped down and is usable to that family who is fleeing from rapists, bad intentioned people who want to harm us. So the mom and the family finds that they can survive weeks on end without food. How can they do that? Because of the step down energy that is created during meditation. So you're actually saving lives if you do it, and it takes a while. We usually ask that people just start where you are. Don't try to force it. Just close your eyes, focus on the ajna center between the eyebrows, and relax, but not so much so that you fall asleep. And in so doing, you find that you feel so relaxed. The tension that you were experiencing because this gang or group of people with bad intentions are coming your way, it doesn't bother you as much because you know someone is looking out for you.
Wow. Um, I have been writing down follow-up questions ever since we started. I honestly don't know where to begin. I want to talk about your background and what interested you and what prompted you to actually start this journey. What made you want to kind of get into um, like Benjamin Creme, but also I want to talk about evolution and how you started answering my first question. And then, my God. Okay, let's start with evolution. You said like Charles Darwin, he completely got it down. The man and the physical body, the physical evolution. I also want to talk about the spiritual evolution, because there are many layers in your work and how you describe them. Um, so perhaps we can start from there and
Okay.
then, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So after the development of the physical vehicle, there was this uh, disruption of our evolution by the action of volcanic activity. It submerged most of the island that was uh, um, Easter Island, Hawaii, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand. These were the mountainous areas of Lemuria. So they were still standing. And as always the case, the spiritual kingdom, the kingdom of the souls, our spiritual hierarchy, they always have given warnings to those people who need to preserve the little knowledge that they had to carry those advances forward. So there was an attempt to get them to higher ground. And some listened, some did not. But that's a protective measure for the civilization at that time. It lasted 6 million years. But it would take the submergence of Lemuria to bring us to another level called the astral emotional vehicle. And that happened in Atlantis. The Atlantic Ocean is named after Atlantis. So we've heard there's been a lot of speculation of what happened during that time period. It lasted 12.5 million years. So it's the longest period that we spent up to that point on the continent developing the emotional astral vehicle. Now, you know that it sometimes as you're emotionally upset, it can carry forward and just taint your entire day. Someone said this about you or that about you, and you think about it again and again. You replay the tape, and suddenly you're depressed. So the emotions are very important to keep a calm demeanor, and that was developed during Atlantean times. It was also uh, the understanding and dealing with the things that come with the emotional vehicle. And it as I said, lasted uh, 12.5 million years. But during that time period, a lot of advances occurred during Atlantean times. For instance, people uh, developed understanding of the languages, and though some of it is telepathic, sometimes you get a close relationship with your spouse, and you can almost feel what the other person is thinking, and you think that, oh my gosh, I know what you're getting ready to say, and you tell them exactly what they're thinking, and you wonder, how does this occur? Have we been together so long that we can through osmosis know what the other person is thinking? There is that. There is that. And even now they're telling us that a small cell or atom can actually have intelligence. Now, this is a sweeping statement to make, to say that an atom, which is you have to see with the aid of a microscope, has a level of intelligence. People don't believe that that's possible, but science is showing otherwise. I had Bruce Lipton from Stanford University to come to the Leo Krogan conference, and he talked about this. And by the end of the Krogan conference, he told people, do not abandon your hope, your belief that your prayers can be answered, because our information shows that if a cell moves from one place to another, or an atom moves from one place to another, it is influenced by thought. Now, we already understand that energy follows thought and then becomes force. But they're telling us that the cell or the atom itself is able to have intelligence. It's able to pick up what is being thought. So that's pretty huge. And Maitreya, who's the head of the spiritual hierarchy, he took it even further than that. He said the brain is not anything less than a blueprint of creation. He said the brain is a blueprint of creation. Now, if you know this, and you have a Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, who was almost a master. She's taken the fourth initiation. There are only 5 that give you mastery. And she was so brilliant, had such a developed mind that she could pick up what you were thinking. she could pick up guests, and sometimes it was embarrassing for her very famous family, the Hans. They were known throughout history, well-to-do, influential, but she was a prodigy. She was way ahead of her years in age, and she had dreams about this tall man, maybe the height of Michael Jordan, uh, that she would see in her dreams. And she began to wonder about this person, this man that was so tall, and he had a turban around his head, and she wanted to see him. It might help her, she thought, explain these skills that she had. She could know what a person was thinking, and she could cause a dozen roses to fall from the ceiling. People thought, they said, well, how does she do that? And then one person, she always had a large audience of people at her home. They hung on every word. They never got tired of hearing from her on all the deep questions of life. And so when one of these guests said, I didn't get one of those roses, and she just kind of waved her hand, and a dozen more roses fell. She was a tomboy. She liked doing things that boys like to do, including riding horses that were half broken. And so they would buck. And once she got caught in the stirrups of the horse and would have been dragged to death were it not for this tall man, the Master Moya, who was St. Peter in the biblical times. He held her body up to avoid being dragged to death. So she could do that. She could make light things heavy and heavy things light. For instance, she could make a normal card or chess table so heavy that the strongest man in the room could not lift it. And they would approach the chess table with kind of a sneer and a laugh, and then they wrap their arms around it and try to pull it up, and it wouldn't budge at all. And then the man who was doing that would say, "That's a neat trick." She said, "One day you will be able to do what I just did." And her brother, he thought there was some conspiracy for the Russian young man to pretend that the chess table could not be moved, but he tried it himself and almost dislocated his arm by the force of his effort. So this is some of the things that she was able to do. She went to Cornell University and spent some time with the illustrious professor there. And he said she was a marvel to see. He described her as a Russian bear, lovingly as a Russian bear. So she was a big woman. She people hung on every word that she used, and she could give explanations on everything. So he wondered, how could she do this? She didn't have a traveling library. She was making quotes coming from the Vatican, coming from the rare book library at Oxford. How does she do that? And then it turns out that his granddaughter solved that puzzle. And the little girl said, "I saw a hand It was beige in color that came from under the desk and handed her little pieces of paper. This is where she got her references from. So who was that? It didn't frighten the little girl. The masters say oftentimes they will not use it in the whole body because it frightens people so much. But apparently seeing an arm come from under the desk and sharing HPB, which she preferred to be called, a little piece of paper giving the reference for a quote that she wanted to use. So this was what she did. I mean, I'm not going to elaborate. You can go to the book and see HPB and what she did. But I can tell you that she could read verbatim unopened letters that no one had seen. She had not seen the letters. They were still sealed, and she would read the letter. Now, how is that possible for a person to do that? Well, it turns out it's the brain that's doing it. And she talked about what happens when your brain starts to work and you focus on what was the intention of the person that wrote the letter, wrote the words in the letter, and she could discern what those words were. It's called mind over matter. And she had the process down in such a way that she could read on that open letters. And that's clearly impossible to do, but she did it. And she knew 5 languages, including Senzar and sacerdotal languages that do not find their comparable translation in English or the language that she was using. She knew 5 languages, and she could learn a new language on the fly. So she was a 4th degree initiate. What does that mean? She was the same level as Leonardo da Vinci, who was from Mercury, the planet Mercury. It's an invisible planet. It's close to the sun, as you know from your science and your astronomy. So that's the kind of thing that she regularly displayed. And also Jesus, when he was in Palestine, he was a 4th degree initiate. So she was at that level, one step away from being a master. And some of my guests sometimes ask, well, Ira, why aren't any of these masters females? And I told them, I said, they're actually androgynous. They're male and female. And so that duality over time becomes a unity. But I tell women, I said, the masters can present themselves as a male or female. They choose to be a male because they want to anchor their energy in a powerful way. But you're going to see female masters, I think it's 350 years from now. But the men can get away with doing a lot more than women. It wasn't too long ago that women didn't have rights. You know that. You've seen it in the history. Even though women are oftentimes more talented and they have the ability to know if a member of their family is ill or is facing danger. They know that. Moms can know that. And she can't get rest until she knows what has happened. she makes a phone call or gets a telegram or something to notify her that her son or daughter is okay. So women have that ability to sometimes just project over long distances what is going on with a person that is close to their heart. So, yeah, women, I had most of the ladies on my staff because we had evaluations of kids, and mothers are better at that than men, but sometimes they'll fool you. The men can sometimes surprise you with their tenderness in dealing with their kids. So, but most of the staff were women, physicians, nurse practitioners, nurses, psychologists, social workers, physical, occupational therapists, all the disciplines. They evaluate the children and find out what's going on wrong and what needs to happen in their IEPs, the individual education plans. So I had a lot of very talented women on staff, and their families were just as important as their work. But I told them, I said, you're doing two jobs. You're working on your job as a speech and language pathologist, as a physical occupational therapist, and then you're going home and being a teacher for your kids. And what is your husband doing? He's playing golf. So, so there's something wrong with this picture. And that's what happens. But it happens that the astral emotional vehicle is the most difficult one to control, to subjugate. And it takes a while before you develop the ability to calm and regulate the astral emotional vehicle. It's the most difficult one to control. And it happens. You got an illusion that occurs on astral levels, and it has to do with the emotions. If you're emotionally upset, you cannot bring yourself to do some of the routine activities of daily living. If you're upset and your emotions are scattered and you can't seem to control the thoughts that someone said this and that about you. And so the astral emotional vehicle, extremely important. And during Atlantis, the period of Atlantis, Maitreya became a master during early Atlantean times. So he is the Bodhisattva. They have the Manu, Bodhisattva, Maya, Shohan. Most of the world teachers come from the Bodhisattva. And we owe the debt of gratitude to India, the Hindus, because they have kept this language and the true language of the masters available to us and upmost in our knowledge of the spiritual hierarchy and how it's organized. And there are three departments called the Trinity, and four more support. They are, in fact, the Manu, which is the power force of God, and it also includes the will of God. And so that's the first, it's called the first ray of influence of the masters. And there's a destructive phase called the Antichrist. So you got love, wisdom is the second ray, a force of energy coming through the cosmos. And it influences us in certain ways, but we develop love and wisdom. Love is the sort of the glue that keeps things in their proper place. And it also is the thing that really propels our evolution is the love of God, love of humanity. And we have to have, and then there's the adaptive intelligence, which is the Maya Shohan. That is the third. And then you got harmony through conflict, beauty, art. A lot of people, Michael Jackson has that. And he's such a great dancer and singer. And so usually if it's like a painting and you have a great artist and he looks through his third eye and his Ajna center and sees what is missing in your profile, and he takes a ray of energy that is, say, is latent and is not working properly, then he can heighten that energy so that you come within greater balance. After the harmony through conflict, beauty, art, concrete science is the fifth one. So that is kind of self-explanatory. And if you have it or you need it, the soul can provide that. So in a lifetime, you may be focusing on love, wisdom, and then another lifetime, you can be focusing on the harmony through conflict, beauty, or art, or concrete science, where some of your advances are made in the scientific, especially the invisible realm, where you're talking about energy that cannot be experienced, it cannot be seen, and it's called etheric matter. So science has made some big advances. I told my cousin, who is a surgeon, that what he's doing is obsolete, and his daughter is also a surgeon. So he said, "Come on, Ira, tell us something better than that." And I said, "Well, this is what you want the truth, don't you?" The fact is that Harry Oldfield has already discovered that he started working on a Great Dane dog, has an aphasia in his hip because it grows so quickly. And he found that experimenting with sound and color therapy, he was able to get the dog running around like a young pup. So this was amazing to him. And he decided he take it on the road with humans. And it got him in trouble with the physicians because he was healing people of illnesses that the doctors would normally have to be called in. But he was using sound and color. They're flip sides of the same thing. So that's what is awaiting us as we move away from the tried and true. And of course, the physicians kind of control that arena, but it's to our detriment, actually, because sound and color can focus on the invisible etheric body, and that's the body that they target. And if you have the blueprint of creation and you know the human genome, you know what is missing in a kidney that is malfunctioning, in a heart that is malfunctioning, and you try out different colors and sounds, and voila, you get miraculous healing. That's going on right now. His name is Harry Oldfield in England. He and his son have opened a door wide. The Indian people, the Hindus, they are the biggest fans. They want to learn this, even if it puts doctors out of business. They want to know this information, these secrets that Harry Oldfield, Dr. Hulda Clark, maybe you heard of her. My sister was transitioning because of cancer, I gave her a device that I paid less than $300 for it. And Bishop McCrim indicated that it had cured some 400 people of cancer. So that's where we're going, Monica. We are heading to a new era of healing. It's going to make the physicians a little upset. They may for a while even find it illegal. Snake oil. This is not true. I mean, this is going to make things worse. They will come up with every kind of reason that you can think of. But we're already opened the door to healing by, it's called the technology of light. And the technology of light is dealing at invisible levels. And they're sharing now that it is possible for a cell, for an atom to have intelligence. I mean, we think that's impossible. It's not. It is not just possible. It's proven that the cell, through our knowledge of the invisible body, can be used to heal us of all that ails us. So you can say that illness is already a thing of the past. We have but to embrace it and pair it to the human genome so that we know what's out of order, what's not working right, what needs a nudge. And it can just be like a painter that's using his brush to pick up the colors that's needed and bring the person into balance, into equilibrium. All of that's now. All of that's now, folks. Monica, it's here, and we can use it to heal humanity. So we're heading toward a new generation of healing that is free. And we have merely the will to do it. And there's going to be some stumbling blocks. Some physicians are going to resist this with a pernicious effort to control it, but you cannot put the genie back in the bottle because it's already out and it's already having the desired effects. Started it on dogs and it's going to people now. And we're going to see some beautiful reports. Imagine what amount you could save in just being able to knock out that doctor's bill and get instantaneous healing. And that's what they can do. That's what they can do, instantaneous healing. And it's coming our way. We're trying to get Maitreya, who was the head of the group, close to Jesus. He started working with Jesus when he was 12 years old. And you imagine working with a man that can answer all of your questions and teach you the Pharisees, Sadducees. That's how Jesus was able to do that. It was consultation with Maitreya from the time he was 12 years old. And so we're going to see some things over the next few years that are going to baffle our science, perhaps cause them anger, jealousy, and we're going to have to endure that because that is the future. That's where we're headed. And it's not going to be stopped. It cannot be stopped. We have to recognize that there is one thing that kind of stands in the way God has given humanity sacrosanct free will. So even the masters cannot come and tell humanity what to do, even though they know they're resisting this new technology. They cannot willy-nilly come in and cure people without getting consent from the people to do it. So that's a big stumbling block, and it's real. They did get involved with Hitler during World War II because Einstein tipped off Allied forces that Hitler and the Germans were knocking on the door. They were perhaps at the doorstep of developing atomic weapons, nuclear weapons, actually, and that they would use it. Well, the masters started to check this out and investigate, and they discovered that Einstein was indeed correct. He had tipped them off, and he was correct in assuming that they were well ahead of the Manhattan Project, which was getting the top brains, MIT, Stanford, all the top universities and think tanks, get them working together to develop this before the Germans. And they decided that, oh gosh, Einstein is right. They almost had it. What can we do? And so they took the issue to God, Sanat Kumara, from Venus. We're trying to emulate, to achieve what they have already accomplished. So we wanted to ask God and tell him that we face, perhaps for the next centuries, a regression of the accomplishments, the evolution we've already achieved, because Germany is bent on possessing the world. They want to control humanity with authoritarian government. And of course, we're facing that now. We're facing that yet again, that some of the leaders of this government and others are trying to develop Kim Jong-un, Putin. They are well on their way to trying to develop. They already have the nuclear weapons, of course, but trying to develop a mastery over the people. And the people is what matters. But we have to sometimes work together and to defeat this ill-fated notions of some Kim Jong-un, Putin, and we have people who admire them, even here in America, admire and seem to give their consent for this to occur. I've had people to write to me, and Elon Musk sent me a friend request after I told him, after he learned that people in 9/11 were jumping from the World Trade Centers on fire. They had an Auschwitz connection. So it was like cause and effect, the law of cause and effect. What you do to others is coming back to you with interest. And I told them that, so you're saluting Putin and Germany, and you want that here in this country, a democratic nation? And I said, be prepared for what you're going to get, because those people who were jumping from the world, anything is better than fire. All animals would jump, but this happened. And Kutomi, the one who will be the next world teacher when Maitreya leaves this planet 2,000 years from now, Kutomi is the one who will be the next world teacher, and we're in good hands. He's the one that was St. John, John the Beloved. That's him. He says that we're going to be in good hands, but he warns us that as it was given during my book Super Mundane, and lets us know that there's some rocky roads ahead, but God may allow us to let Maitreya step forward and have his day of declaration, which we greatly look forward to. It's going to give us free energy. It's going to give us the ability to heal people using sound and color, which is cheap. And so sound and color therapy is going to heal us of almost everything that causes illnesses. That's already here, Monica. It's already here. And we have just the little small things to go. Maitreya wants to have a press conference and what they call the Day of Declaration. The Day of Declaration, in which he will share his credentials as head of the spiritual hierarchy of this planet. We are a non-sacred planet, not very advanced, you know that. So we are going to see him. How do you speak to people with hundreds of different languages? He's not going to speak. He's going to telepathically, that's called brain-to-brain communication. He's going to talk to the people in their language, whatever language that is. French, we're going to hear it in French, and it's brain to brain. We've already seen that. So at a day designated, they're going to have, we've already had a dry run, and that was the, what's the lady from England who was killed in the car crash, Princess
Princess
Diana?
Diana.
Yeah. So that was a warm-up. They tried to reenact some of the conditions that would exist when Maitreya has his day of declaration. And I can tell you there will be no problems. The problem you will have is talking to your kids, because they're going to be saying, Mom was crying and Dad acted like he was listening to something, but the man on TV wasn't speaking. So the kids are going to be on the phone wondering, what is this all about? So you got to feel them in on what's happening, why it's happening, and that it's going to be a very good thing. It's going to be so positive. It's going to change life on planet Earth forever. And they're trying to schedule it, but they got to work within the rules of God. And he says, you can't just do this willy-nilly. You have to have the people, a large portion of people, to consent to this decree, this intervention in their lives in this demonstrative way. You've got to consult with the people. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get a documentary, a film made out of maybe one of my books. There are people who have done a better job than I have. Benjamin Grimm, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, Helena Roerich, and Alice A. Bailey. Three of them are women. And then you got Benjamin Krim, he's done lots of interviews. We have a treasure trove of some of his interviews and what he said, but 3 of them were women. And it just demonstrates the telepathic communication that women have. It's a joy to know that. But I say to the women in the world that you have great gifts, and don't be dismayed by the fact that most of the nation's leaders are men, because women, I'm telling you, women would probably do a better job. I was hoping, I was hoping that we have our first female president. We've had them in Israel, and sometimes they're called, the only man in the room was this lady here. So we got a long way to go, but this day of declaration is the big thing that we're looking forward to. So keep your activity level high, because if we can get enough people to say, we want to hear from this person called Maitreya, we want to hear him. If enough people say that and get Maitreya to come forward and have his day of declaration in which he will share his credentials as the head of the spiritual hierarchy of this planet, even higher than Jesus, although Jesus loves him, all the masters love him, all of them give honor to Maitreya because he became a master. He's a member of the first graduating class on earth. And he's the last of that group that's going to be working directly with humanity. 2,000 years from now, he will be going to someplace in the cosmos where he will be doing higher work, perhaps head of a planet, perhaps working with the Devic population, what we call angels. It's so complex. You need to read the book. I tried to intentionally make it understandable for us pedestrians who do not understand the esoteric, hidden agenda, language that they sometimes use, and to make it accessible and understandable to the everyday people. So that's coming our way. And we can speed it up by, when you get a chance, saying, well, what about this person called Maitreya? We'd like to learn more about him. What can we do to speed that up? We want it. God, can we have it now? People are dying for this. So we can speed it up. We can influence God, but it takes numbers. Numbers talk. There are some people now that are frightened of what can happen. It's nothing but good that comes out of this, and love. And they call it the birth of the Christ principle in the cave of the heart. That's the first initiation that we take. The baptism in the second. It has to do with water. Water has to do with emotion. There's transfiguration. There's the fire. When Jesus went up on the mount and spoke to his disciples, and they said, but didn't they say that Elias would come first? And Jesus said he did come first, and they did to him as they will do to me, which is experience death, crucifixion. But I have a friend at Duke University, Vernon Miller, who was on that initial team in 1978, who studied the Shroud of Turin. And he said, Ira, he said, it's worse than you thought. He said, the spikes didn't go in the hands, it went in the wrist. so it could support the weight. And he said, but I can tell you this, it was so amazing. The sound when they brought the Shroud of Turin into the room, he had one colleague from Duke and some other celebrated scientists studying the blood and all the shroud itself has been patched. There was a fire, so that was the reason for the difference in the dating of it. But he said when they brought it in the room, you could hear this sound. I said, was it like cicadas? He said, yeah, I guess you could characterize that. I said, the reason I said that is because a bunch of African kids, a plane went down in Africa, and they said the sound was like cicadas. Well, what does that mean? It means that people who are in the invisible etheric world, they saw their kids, they'd just been horrified by the plane going down, and their relatives, as we now understand in hospice, telling us that relatives that you think are deceased or in the grave or with Jesus or whatever you want to call it, they experience this sound. And that sound has to do with beings who are in the invisible state. The kids described it as bees in a bottle. The African kids described it as bees in a bottle. You know, as the kids, we used to catch bees, these bumblebees, and put them all in a bottle. And the sound that they make kind of close to this sound of etheric matter when lots of them come and see these kids that are harmed in this plane going down, and they hear this sound. Well, Vernon Miller told me that's very close, Ira. He said that's what we saw, but I learned later on that Jesus was anesthetized, so he would not experience the brutal pain of the crucifixion. They said it was just too much for a fourth degree initiate going through the crucifixion. In the East is called the renunciation. That means giving up everything, including life itself, in order to follow the course of the soul. So that's what happens. And it's not as bad as we thought. But still, Jesus didn't know until maybe the 11th hour that he was going to be given something to alleviate the pain that he experienced during the crucifixion. But it did happen. It definitely did happen. But Socrates was sold into slavery. And Kutumi, who will be the next world teacher, he lived in poverty most of his life. So we have to be prepared to make some sacrifices. The word is we sacrifice the lesser, which is matter, and all the accoutrements of matter, great house and new car and new this and pearls and diamonds and all of that. You know, we have to get over that. And we sacrifice that in order to obtain the spiritual birthright that is our achievement. So we sacrifice the lesser to gain the higher. The higher is the spiritual birthright that is ours. We have merely to claim it and do what is needed for Maitreya to come forward. And we can do that. We got the people, and they want this. But is convincing God that we have the numbers.
Yeah. Well, I consider myself as one of the numbers. I am genuinely so curious, and I feel like whoever's listening and watching right now would want to get their hands on the book. I've gone through your book, and even after this conversation, I want to go back to it again and look at things from a fresh perspective. It's so complex, and you made it so accessible. And still, I feel like I need like even 10 hours is not enough to go through everything. So many layers, so many topics, so many. I don't,
Mhm.
I can't even begin to just go through it one by one. I mean, I just ask about the evolution, and now I want to ask about all the teachers and everything, and the solar gods even. But conscious of time, I did want to ask you this. I guess for someone who has no idea about like, esoteric knowledge, even me who's like really trying to dabble in it, this is quite hard to grasp, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
And it's just so fascinating to me just listening to you talk. It's almost like I just want to like just let you talk forever and ever. Just I'll pick up any nuggets here and there. However, for someone who has no experience or no background, and they're kind of operating from a place of fear and ego and just looking at the world and how divisive it has become, what is something that you can tell them? What specific insight from the ageless wisdom can you share?
I would say the most important thing you can do to prepare yourself for the coming age in which the masters, for the first time in 98,000 years, are going to be working with humanity as consultants, as guides, is start meditation. Being silent is a challenge because we're used to our iPhones and listening and constantly dealing with the competing things for our attention. Being silent is hard for us as Americans. Now, there are some people, once you start doing it, you get great at it. I had a lady who's Dutch, and she said, Ira, I'm not a good candidate because my mind works 100 miles an hour. I said, that's how you know you need it. That's not, you start where you are. I don't care if it's just a half an hour. Uh, when you do it, just enough, start there. And over months, increase it by 10 minutes until you get up to an hour. Then you start tackling 2 hours or an hour and a half. You build in the ability to meditate. In so doing, you develop a contact and eventual union with your soul. So your soul is the mini God within you. And as you get more contact with your soul, you find that it is going to help you with your education, help you with your focus, help you with your concentration, which is where knowledge lies. So that is the thing you can do. I did something that I I did it one time, and it was after a long meditation, about 5 hours. And I spoke to my soul and I said, it's a privilege working with you. I didn't know you were there. I didn't know how to meditate, but I stuck with it. And after a while, began to look forward to it. And I said it from my heart. And I noticed that at the end of the meditation, I went to sleep. I was sleepy and I went to sleep and something happened. It only happened at one time. And it was like an amazing experience, Monica. It was like something spinning around me. And it was just such a beautiful thing. And I never had that feeling before, but it was like this spinning uh, uh, entity that was influencing me in ways I could not describe. I felt so good. I felt emboldened. I felt like I was in contact with something I never experienced before, haven't experienced since. But I tell people, contact your soul. Like you're talking to Jesus, like you're talking to God, like you're talking to your spiritual leader, whomever that is, and show your appreciation. Let your soul know that you're aware that something is happening which is good, that is improving your focus and concentration, your spirituality, which is your birthright, and that the soul could respond. You're inviting your soul to respond. And people that have joined my group have said, Ira, that's the most important thing you've given us, to talk to the soul. And you don't have to say words. You can just think them and you can rehearse what you want to say before you say it. But let the soul know that you appreciate what they're doing to help you as a guide, as a teacher, and to help you sort through life. And you will get it no matter what your religion is, no matter what your beliefs are. Once you start doing that, you will find that it amplifies your sensitivity to the soul. Jesus said it, the kingdom of heaven is within you. And the master from Venus said, he said, there are two words that for the last billion years, it encapsulates what we're doing. And for the next billion years, it's going to be the same. It's know thyself. So what he's talking about here is not the personality vehicle that goes through the love relationship with all matter in its different forms and all the stuff that we can accumulate in a lifetime. It's the invisible, the soul. And if you can make a statement to your soul, I appreciate you. I know you've given me warnings when I've been in danger, and just put it all out there in a heartfelt way and see what happens. See what happens. It may not happen the first time that you reach out. It may be the second or third time. But the soul knows you better than your mom, knows what your weaknesses are, knows what your strengths are. And if you reach out with your heart, with love, you will probably get a response. And so I would ask you, Monica, to bear in mind that the meditation is the age-old royal road, and don't doubt that the soul is watching. It may be indifferent sometimes because it sees you make the same mistakes again and again. But don't give up. The soul never gives up on you. It's unconditional love. And the soul has that for you when it volunteered 18.5 million years ago, and to be companionable to you. And it will just increase. It will just improve the more you do it. and you find that you're nurturing a relationship that you didn't know you had. And beautiful things will occur.
Absolutely. I know what I'm gonna do before I sleep tonight. Baby steps. But thank you for sharing that, Ira. I think even for people who are not interested in religion or any esoteric knowledge, that's actually a good practice to meditate. As you said, humanity is one. We all just have different ways of being. Um, Ira, before I let you go, where can our viewers find your book?
Well, the book is available at Fulton Books. They're the publisher. Barnes and Noble, uh, uh, Amazon. Um, my website, iralpalmer.com, has the book. Um, and what is that? It's, almost most bookstores have it now. So I've done interviews on Logan Crawford's Spotlight TV, uh, Rick Bratton's podcast, and my book has gone to several countries, including Frankfurt, Germany, and Italy, and I didn't know that there were so many people in uh, in these countries, and I've gotten some heartfelt thank you messages from them telling me how much the book moved them, and so it's widely available, widely available. We're getting there. Your program will help in that effort. Um, but I get approached all the time. I understand I'm supposed to be going down to California. So there, when I go down there, they said I'll be paid for coming there. Well, that's better than me pulling out thousands of dollars to get this message out on the book. But I appreciate you and Julia, Judd, Judd Michaels, for bringing me on and allowing me to tell this story. The book is not hard to read. It's not difficult. And look at The Secret Doctrine by Helena Blavatsky. It's 1,200 pages. And I
Yeah.
tried to get the essential stuff, into this book and step down the information as much as I could so that it's a doable journey. But just take a few pages, a week, and till you get through it, make notes while you're reading it, and you will find that it will pay dividends with your kids. Your kids need this. I mean, they really do, and they will thank you for it because you don't know you need it until you start meditating, and it just involves being silent. You say the great invocation out loud. And then after a while, you notice you look forward to it. You, you can do 2 hours, then you can do 3. You get to the point, this lady from France, she does she does 5, 6 hours. And a lady from Atlanta, she also does a lot of hours. And she can, when Maitreya and the Master Jesus show up sometimes at these events, uh, they can see them. I mean, even though they're in disguise, they can know that there's energy over there. There's some special energy over there, and you realize that it's Maitreya or the Master Jesus, and they have this aura, or they have this energy. It's kind of like a ballet dancer saying, she calls her body her instrument, and Maitreya cause their bodies, and what is that word he used? Is they haven't, it's not an instrument because they can pick up the vibrations of something that happened thousands and thousands of years ago and reorganize what was said, what was done, what the community was struggling with, all of that. And it's an organism, something like organism, I forget, but don't lose sight of the meditation. It's the link that you have with the kingdom of souls. And all of them have that special aura and a special ability to communicate complex thoughts and pick up the vibration, just as HPV did, of what happened. They're looking at a relic that happened millions of years ago, and they can look at it and touch it, and they can reorganize what happened in that community and what were the struggles they were dealing with and how they dealt with them. So the masses can telepathically pick up all so much, and they do it with ease and a certain passion and a certain poetry. They are beautiful to listen to. And they say, I come to release you from the bondage of your self-imposed limitations and to take you with me back to God. I shall show you that through right distribution of the earth's manifold resources, all men may enjoy God's bounty. I shall show you too that the path to God is simple indeed. I shall release from your eyes the blindfold of ignorance. I shall drive from this earth forever the curse of hatred, the sin of separation. Say yea to my coming and be enfolded in the blessing of my love. So this is one of the messages. There are over 100 of those messages where he talks. And you do one of those before you go into meditation to set yourself up for this transmission meditation. And it's in the book. It's in the book. You don't have to remember this, but go to the book. Start at the back. You might want to look at some of the things that are covered, some of the books that I recommend. Beyond the Himalayas. That's a book that you can't put down. It is like a wonderful movie. And it just deals with some things that are just so incredible. Beyond the Himalayas. Everybody who has read it said, I couldn't put it down. It was interfering with my work. But that's how amazing some of these books are. I just tried to get the high points to entice you into reading these books because they are to be enjoyed and relished and to take you to the next level of your growth as a human being.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ira. I really hope to talk to you again very soon. I think we need to spend more time together, but thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And definitely I will revisit the book. I think it will get fresher and fresher and newer every time I read it. And to our viewers, we will link it in the description below. And if you would want to reach out to Ira and give him your heartful, just like gratitude, you can reach out to him. The website will also be in the description below. And for more conversations like this, check out our YouTube channel. And until then, this has been your host, Monica, and I'll see you very soon.